Hi, this is Brian with the Balanced Dog, and this handsome devil is Julio, who's in for some training. And he had a few bite incidents, and to be quite honest, I'm not sure what has caused those, but I can speculate, which is always fun to do, but you don't want to hang your hat on that. But he was pulled off the streets, catch pulled him, and then they took him in to the vet. He was apparently really sick and had to go into like oxygen chamber therapy and all these different modalities and stuff to get him over whatever he was sick from. And I feel sometimes, because I've had dogs and I've known their situations prior to going into a clinic and then coming out. So again, I can speculate that with all of this treatment that he was going through, sometimes dogs can start becoming protective or guarding themselves. So if you think about him being inside of a kennel, and then they're having to go and pull him out and do some blood draws or whatever other procedures they have. And the clinic's not a very calm place to be. It's quite stressful. The other part of that is there's, even though all these people that work in the clinics are there for the well-being of the dog, from a physical standpoint, a lot of times they don't understand what can possibly happen from a psychological standpoint. So a lot of people feeling sorry for the dog and coddling the dog. Come here, buddy, Julio. Things like that can really be detrimental to a dog's psychology and how he perceives people. And so for me, what I'm looking at with him is, possibly I've had dogs that became kind of crate barrier protective, basically, and that one dog in particular that came in for training, and he had gone to another trainer for a long time. They did e-collar work and finding out how they told the owners how to work with the dog, and then talking to the rescue, and the rescue kept saying that the trainer kept saying that the dog was unpredictable. So when I went to get him out of the crate for the first time, he basically wanted nothing to do with me. So charging the kennel, baring teeth, so on and so forth. But in the end, I got him out. He liked his muzzle, so that was a good way to soften the behavior, because he saw that as a positive thing, right? So I did use the muzzle for about 3 days, because when I kept hearing that the dog was unpredictable, I kind of had to be careful, because they could never tell me in what scenario he was unpredictable. But as it all unfolded, basically the trainers were using really high e-collar levels on the dog. So he was totally predictable in my hands, right? So for me, I felt that, again, speculating that he was possibly guarding himself, like he didn't want to go out to train because of the possible repercussions that could happen, right? So Julio, come here, buddy. So Julio, that leads me to Julio, and come here, buddy, place. And so far, we haven't had any incidents except for his food bowl. So we've been working on some resource guarding stuff, which is actually going really well. All I've had to do was teach him basically to wait to come out of the kennel, to wait to go through the thresholds of the door. And when I was putting food in his crate, he had to wait for that. So it took a bit of time for him to kind of understand that. And then, oh my goodness, you see how he tried to bite me. But by pulling down that excitement over the food, instead of just sticking it down and letting him charge into it, I slowed his brain down. So as far as like I can put the food down, he waits, and I can send him to get it. And if I move around the kennel, he's not lashing out anymore. So for me, that's a success. Put the food down, the dog can eat it, leave him alone. If I need him to get off the food bowl for some whatever reasons, emergency situations, I can tell him to leave it, and he'll move off, and then I can send him to his place. So that's how we work around that. So many people seem to be so hot and heavy on like he's resource guarding, let's correct the crap out of that dog so he doesn't do it anymore, versus stopping and taking the time to kind of look at the scenario and how we can break this down for the dog without it being a confrontation, right? Or without the dog getting into an argument with us over the food, right? So again, if you go straight at it from just correcting the crap out of the dog, you're not really building a relationship, and you can create more stress, especially if it's being done inside the kennel. See, so as far as that goes, that's the only thing. I mean, he's shown me some cues where he was nervous, and if I was reaching in to take the leash off of him, so we changed up how that's going to go. And if he goes in the crate and goes in the back, now I just recall him, because I built all of his recall. So I've recalled him to the front of the crate, and then I can take the leash off without him being concerned about it, because every time I recalled him, he got praise for it. So just take the time to kind of stop and look at the dog as a whole, understand where it came from, what the situation it was in, and then again, you can speculate and say, well, maybe this happened, and it's not a bad thing to speculate, but we will never know exactly, the truth 100%. But we can watch the dog, and the dog will let us know that if we're coming to the crate door and they charge it, that might tell you something. If you're coming to the crate door and they go to the far back of it, that tells you something. So anyways, so I hope that helps when it comes to biting dogs, because they're doing it for a particular reason. Everybody has their own reasons, but a majority of the dogs that I get, they're biting because it's something that has happened to them where it's pushed them into that, as part of the fence drive, it's pushed them into defense, right? So I can put a dog in defense just sheerly by checking the leash, but pushing them into it is completely different, right? So if he's in the back of a crate and people are going and reaching in and pulling him out to do a blood draw or something, if this happens time and again, and they're reaching in and he's cowered in the back, some dogs are just going to start moving forward to try and take care of the situation. So, but again, I've rarely had a dog that was extremely confident and has bitten, but they're out there. But most of the dogs that are biting, they're not coming from a very confident place. So they really shouldn't have to be, handled very heavy-handed. It's just a matter of taking some time and some patience and watching the dog before you make your decision on how you're going to move forward with teaching that dog what he needs to know. Because I've seen video of people trying to solicit the behavior, excuse me, where they're putting their hand over the dog and the dog's totally cowering down, and then he starts to growl because they're keeping their hand over it, and they start to growl, and then they correct them. The simple solution would be build a relationship with that dog so you gain some trust. And as the training goes, through the training, then you can, through doing recalls, through unwinding the dog on the long line, you start to build this relationship with them that they start to trust you, and you can start to put your hands on them, and you can start to pet them, and you can eventually move your hands up to the head and start scrubbing the ears, things like that the dog will enjoy over time, but forcing a dog into a situation where it's going to bite or warning you and then correcting it, it's a little unethical in my opinion. But people do it. I don't. And I just like to take the time to build my relationship with these dogs. And if they do strike or try and bite me, it's something that I've probably moved too quick, and there's no reason to punish the dog for that. Or I missed a cue that the dog was giving me, and the dog either bared its teeth or tried to strike. And again, there's no reason to punish the dog because it was a mistake that I made. So anyways, that's Julio. He's over there doing something. Julio, let's go. Julio, ven aquí. Ándale. Julio, please. There you go, Mr. Julio.